Sometimes the one thing holding a woman back from moving forward with you, the one thing that won't allow her to really connect with you on that deeper level where she lets her guard down, she's completely in the moment, enjoying herself with you, is a woman's ego. And in this video, I'm gonna share 7 ways to destroy her ego and have her see that you and her are on the same exact level. She's not above you and she's not better than you. Because only then will you get to finally spend time with the real her and see if there actually is chemistry between you. Hi, I'm Bobby Rio, and right off the bat, I want to be clear. This video is not about criticizing women, belittling women, or trying to damage their self-esteem. This video is about what author Ryan Holiday calls removing the obstacle in the way. The ego is that obstacle. Our egos, both men and women, are very often responsible for preventing us from getting what we really want. As a starting point, when I use the term ego, I mean that inflated sense of pride in your superiority to others. We're all guilty of it in some ways, and it's natural. It's nothing that you should be upset about with a woman over, but it is something that you have to be aware of. And you have to know how to remove her ego from the equation. So there's a few reasons that you need to eliminate a woman's ego. A large part of it has to do with the way that women fall in love. You'll very often hear me say that a woman needs to feel like she's earning your love and approval, and if it comes too easily, she doesn't want it. Part of that is because a woman wants to feel like you're slowly realizing how special she is. But here's the important part. She should feel special for who she is, not because she's an attractive girl who gets attention from random guys. And in order for her to feel special for who she is, you've got to remove the obstacle in the way. Another reason that you have to remove this obstacle is because women inherently and instinctively choose a man based on his value. She'll never go for a guy if she believes that she has more value than he does. Now, us guys, we're guilty of this too, except men tend to base value on looks, right? So if a guy mentally sees himself as a 7 on looks, he's only going to go for a woman who's a 7 or above. He won't go for a girl he thinks is a 5. I say this because I know guys like to complain about women, but we do it too. We're guilty of this too. For women though, value isn't looks. It's a whole bunch of other less tangible characteristics. And these are traits that are less easy for her to immediately judge. So what you need to understand about women is that women are what I call meaning makers. And she's evaluating how you act, your behavior, your attitude, how much or how little intimidation you have around her, how certain you are, how easily she can rattle you with the things that she's saying. That's how a woman judges your value, which for us men is great because it's a lot easier to change these traits than it is for an unattractive woman to suddenly get hot, right? The issue is that sometimes a woman's ego is resistant to giving you that chance. Again, it's the obstacle in the way. And the hard part is that if you're hanging out with a woman and her ego is telling her, I've got more value than that guy does, her guard will never go down enough to create a real connection with you. That's why when you destroy a woman's ego, you're removing that obstacle. So I want to go over 7 ways to eliminate a woman's ego. And let's start with the easiest one to do. Very simple advice. Avoid her thirst traps. A thirst trap is when she does something or she posts a picture on social media and she's doing it to get the attention and the admiration of men. Don't comment, don't like, don't even view her stories if you get the sense that it's a thirst trap. Let the other guys look like the desperate wolves, eager to compliment her and shower her with validation. Make a mental note with any girl. Never be the guy in the comments section, you're so pretty, you look so hot. Those type of comments never work. They just boost her ego. Okay, the second way is by being what we call autonomous, by having something in your life that will always be more important than a woman. There's a great scene in the show Yellowstone where this hot singer, she's attracted to one of these ranch hands and she's talking to another woman and she says something like, what I love about cowboys is the same thing I hate. They'll always choose the life over me. So this hot, attractive singer, even though she's got more social value than this ranch hand, she knows that at the end of the day, if he had a choice between her and the cowboy life, he's choosing the life, which instantly eliminates her ego. You gotta have things in your life that a woman can tell is more important than her. Now, if you ever wanna have your ego crushed, right, I always say date a single mom, because you'll experience what I mean. Because it doesn't matter how awesome you are, how good the sex is, or anything, you will always feel well aware that you are her second choice to her child, right? So having something in your life, a passion, a goal, something that supersedes your desire for any one woman will help remove that obstacle in the way. So the third way is to use something called calculated neglect. I actually got the term from one of my favorite books of all time by David Benioff called The City of Thieves. It's a fiction book about a couple Russian soldiers during World War II. It's a just amazing book, right? But there's a scene in the book where one of the soldiers is ignoring this girl all night. And his friend, this virgin soldier, he's all confused, right? He's like, why are you ignoring her? She likes you. What are you doing? You're going to lose her, right? And his friend, who's, a little bit got more game, he looks at me and goes, calculated neglect. And then later that night, the virgin's laying in the bed and he's listening to his buddy banging the girl all night. Here's the point. Sometimes you must pull your attention away. You can't smother a woman with attention or her ego gets too big. From time to time, purposely pull back your attention and put it on other people, put it on other girls. Just make her want to get that attention back. Calculated neglect. And read the book if you haven't. It's such a good book. I've recommended it to tons of people. Everybody loves it. It's called City of Thieves. Okay, number 4, and this is another simple one. Avoid the talk. Never be the one to instigate the what are we conversation. Don't ask her if she's seeing anyone else. In fact, don't even really seem to care too much. Again, this is specifically related to a girl that you're dating. This is not your girlfriend or wife. The less eager you are to lock things down with her, the more her ego starts to shrink. Let her bring up the talk. Let her ask you if you're seeing anyone else. And when she does, here's a tip. Be vague, right? Leave a little gray at first. She actually likes the idea that she has competition for you. Let her work to win you over. Number 5, so this is a technique I learned from my friend, fellow coach John Sin. It's called framing. And it's so powerful, and there's a lot of ways to use it, but what I'm recommending here is reframing her ego. What do I mean? Well, let's say you're not her normal type, right? You don't have the social value of the guys that she normally goes for. And maybe a part of her has a little fear of like, what will my friends think, right? So with framing, you're gonna build up her ego in a way that removes the obstacles. So there's a psychological phenomenon called commitment and consistency, where once we accept a label, we feel like we have to be consistent with it. A simple example is if someone tells you how funny you are, now every time you hang out with that person, you're gonna feel the need to be funny, to make them laugh, right? You wanna be consistent with that image they have of you. Well, in our case, if you give a woman the label of being an independent thinker, of not caring what people think, she's gonna subconsciously start living up to that label. John will usually weave it into stories where he'll tell a story about someone who cares too much what other people think, and then what he'll do is he'll validate the girl on how she doesn't give a fuck, right? And it's cool and refreshing. Now her ego is built up around being someone who doesn't care what people think, which is much more beneficial to you, especially if you're not her normal type, if you don't have that social value. There's a ton of good ways to use this framing technique to remove a ton of different obstacles. John's got a really awesome Google Doc with a bunch of word-for-word examples of how to frame things to your advantage. It's free. I'm gonna put a link to that Google Doc in the description if you wanna check out what I mean by this framing technique. For instance, you can frame a girl as the one chasing and pursuing you. Again, the Google Doc has examples of the exact stories that John tells to set these frames, but let's get into the next one. Number 6, end on high notes, end on high points. This means leave her wanting more. Don't overstay your welcome. So when you're texting with her, even if the conversation is going good, drop off so that she's wondering where you went. if you're walking around with her and you guys are holding hands, let go of her hand first. Don't let it get to the point where she's ending the conversation or she's pulling her hand away. Even kissing her, be the one to pull back first. If you're talking to her at a party and you know that nothing's gonna happen that night between you, right? Be the one to leave the party first. Don't hang out all night. Don't hang around like a dog circling the table for scraps. Leave and make her wonder why you left so early. Ending on a high point is especially critical when you're dealing with a girl who turned you down or a girl who you broke up with and now you want her back. A lot of times when we're dealing with an ex and we meet up with her and we're so happy to be in the same room with her again, right? We've all been there and it's going good, so we want to keep going as long as possible. But you're 100% better off ending the night, leaving on a high point. Leave her when her perception of you is good and she's wondering why you left, rather than waiting for her to be the one to say, you know what, I gotta get going. Leave on high notes. Very, very important and very easy to do if you remember. Next, don't chase her validation. Now, I've got an entire video on my YouTube channel about this. It's called Stop Caring and She Starts Chasing, and I go a lot deeper into this. I recommend that you watch it, but the idea is that when a woman senses that you're adjusting your opinions or your behaviors to get her to like you, you're feeding her ego. On the other hand, when you seem to not care whether she agrees with your opinions or how impressed she is with what you say, it shrinks her ego. It also means don't be overeager to validate her to get her to like you. Just because she tells you something or some fact about her life, you don't have to immediately tell her how awesome she is. We've all been guilty of this. Instead, be curious to know more, but withhold that validation until you really sense that she's putting the work in to earn it. The average guy approvingly nods his head at everything a woman says and compliments her for anything, right? Oh, you snowboard. Oh, that's so awesome. You're so cool, right? Instead, if she tells you that she snowboards, just be curious. Oh yeah, what got you into it? What do you like about it? And just listen in a neutral but curious way. And at the same time, don't jump at the chance to gain her approval. So again, if she tells you that she loves snowboarding and you do too, don't immediately and eagerly start telling her how good you are or what cool mountains that you've been to, right? The more you remove your need to impress her, the more you're removing her ego at the same time. I've got a couple extra tips that I'm gonna share in a second, but to quickly review these 7, avoid thirst traps. Make this a general rule for yourself, always just avoid them. Second, be autonomous. Have something in your life that she senses is more important than her. These could be your goals, your passions, your values. Third, use calculated neglect to make her wonder why you're not giving her all your attention. Fourth, avoid the talk, which is another general rule. Always let the woman be the one to bring up the relationship talk first. Next, frame her in a way that uses her ego to your advantage. You can also frame yourself in a way that removes obstacles. Again, this is one of the most powerful techniques that I've ever learned. And below, I said, is a link to a Google Doc where John shares his favorite frames to set with a ton of word-for-word examples of how to set these frames in a normal conversation. Then we have ending on a high point. Again, simple. Make it a point to always be the one to end things first, whether it's a text exchange, a meetup, holding hands, a kiss. Pull back so that she wants more instead of overstaying your welcome. Seventh, stop chasing her validation. This means stop trying to impress her. Stop being so quick to give her your approval. Instead, be curious and listen to her in a neutral way. So here's another quick tip. Commoditize beauty. If a woman is very attractive, the less you seem to be affected by beauty, the better. This actually plays into, again, John's framing technique, where he'll frame himself as someone who's not impressed by beauty. He'll say something like, you know, I'm from LA and you can't walk into a bagel shop without bumping into a dozen, wannabe actresses, wannabe models. And you come to realize that beauty is really skin deep. It's really a commodity. Again, I recommend grabbing John's Google Doc below. It's free, where he shares more of these framing techniques word for word. You'll get a little bit better idea of what I mean by framing. He's got one that he uses to frame himself as being discreet, which is important if the girl you like is, a coworker in your social scene and she's scared of you telling things. Another one of my favorites he calls My Friend Cindy's Story, and he uses this one to set the frame that things won't get weird if we sleep together, because a lot of girls resist sleeping with a guy because they're afraid that the guy's gonna get all clingy and, you know, and things are gonna get weird if things don't work out. So read through them in the Google Doc below. You'll find them very, very helpful, very useful, really. And if you found this video helpful, hit like, hit subscribe, and leave me a comment and let me know what you want me to cover next.